Easy everyone, Creatures here. As mentioned, I wanted to do a brief tutorial on minimal sub basses. So I'll talk you through sort of the plugin and the synth, some of the movement that we've got going on with the filter and the compression or sidechain, and then just a little bit more if I can. So first of all, I just wanted to play you the track itself. It came out earlier this year. No, last year. It's January, on Rebel Music, and it's called Death Threats, which is quite a horrible name, but it's in the vocal. So here we go.
Stripped of societal norms and threatened with death.
Cool, so you get the idea. And what we're focusing on today in particular is the subs. I am going to do full tutorials on the rest of the mids, the drums and everything else, but that will be over on my Patreon if you want to go and sort of see that sort of stuff in more detail. So first of all, let's just have a look at the patch. And it's quite a simple sort of sub that's slowly opening up as far as I'm aware. So let's just have a look with it playing. So what I've got is it triggering on the kicks. So what it's doing is opening up a little bit. And that's where a lot of the movement is coming from. As you can see, it's kind of following this LFO and this one as well, which are both moving towards sort of opening the filter, morphing a little bit, and FM sort of adding some of this harmonic in, which is a bit weird. I would normally do that, but it is what it is. So what I've done is essentially started with an oscillator table myself, and this is what I drew in. And you can see this is the kind of shape that we got. Then we go to this side, and we've got a little bit of adjustment, just so if I sort of move the wavetable position, which I didn't, but if I do, then it kind of adds slight movement there, basically. This is the same, but slightly different, as you can see. But very, very similar. So I'm just making basic sine waves, and then just adding in extra harmonics through the bins in that to create my own oscillators, which is relatively simple to do, but it's one of those about tweaking them as much and kind of getting them to sit right in terms of the mix of where do you want certain harmonics to be. The point in this is to get, that really raw mid harmonic that we've got coming through the sub, rather than it just being complete low end, even though, later in the process it's been filtered. So if I just turn the filter off and sidechain just so you can hear it and what it sounds like directly out of Serum, this is what it sounds like. So the first thing that I did, sort of post-processing wise, was just using an auto filter. So the reason for this is to, number one, really bring through that sub, because that's where I wanted it to be sort of mainly focused, with all of the mids that are going to come in over the top. But then, as you'll notice at the end of the 4-bar, I think it's 4, it might be 8 bars, but I open up this filter. So if we just look at the automation chain a second, yeah, so it's at the end of 8 bars. So just so you can hear that again. And what that's doing is kind of adding in some extra movement in terms of rising into sort of the end of the bar, so it doesn't feel like it's just super duper sort of loopy, which is the one thing about drum and bass which I think a lot of people get stuck on early on, is it's quite loopy, and it's because of lack of kind of edits and movement towards the end of each 8 or 16 or 4 bar or however often you want to do it. Just to quickly show you, there is also a layer here which comes over the top, which is really cool, I think. And that kind of fills out the rest of the space in that area. So that's that really. Next up is Sidechain, and I've really heavily sidechained this, and the point is just to make it duck on the kick as much as possible. So it's ducking by roughly 30 dB when the kick comes through. Although it's got that movement because I'm re-triggering it on the kick anyway, it's just adding in extra emphasis and really tucking it underneath that kick. So you can see it's ducking by 17 dB, which is a lot. When it's ducking by 17 dB, it's obviously not inaudible, but it's taking it to a point of being very quiet in the mix, essentially. But with a quick release and short attack, it's going to just come back up to its normal volume very quickly, essentially. And let me just see if there's any more processing in Serum, because I don't think there is. Oh, okay, fine. So we've got a bit of compression and some distortion, which I've boosted this harmonic. As I mentioned earlier, like, it's all about getting the harmonics that you want out of Serum. Mostly post-processing stuff is where you're going to kind of really tighten things. But here, early on, because what we're doing is essentially subtractive, we want to try and get as many harmonics in there as possible without it being without it sounding awful, for want of a better way of putting that. I've got hyperdimension on, but the mix is on 0, so I don't even know what the point in that is. But yeah, that's it. Even in some of my like stuff, and this is like a recent tune. I actually think I made it about a year or 2 before the release. So it's probably a couple years old, really, even though it's only just come out. But it's one of those that's just worth me pointing out that random stuff like this is just always going to occur sometimes when you're writing tunes. It's not making any difference, but it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, any questions, please drop them in the comments below. For more detailed tutorials and everything, jump on to my Patreon, which is patreon.com/creaturesdnb. And yeah, big ups everyone that's watching the YouTube and the videos at the moment, and hopefully they're all helpful. But yeah, here's the track again.
Stripped of societal norms and threatened with death. Stripped of societal norms and threatened with death.